How's it going, folks, and welcome back. We have Pep, we have Klopp, they're both still at identical non-league clubs. Today is part 2, I hope you're excited, I most certainly am. Let's get straight into this. We're here in 2026, they both made it into the playoffs again, and Pep got one over on Klopp. Yes, in the first playoff round, they met. And of course, just as a reminder, they both reached this stage last year. They both lost in the semi-finals. On this occasion, Pep won 1-0. Wasn't really a classic. In fact, Klopp was rather unlucky. Bennett was sent off in the first half. They didn't have a lot of the ball clopped over. They still created opportunities, but in the end, it was a stellar defensive performance by Pep's men, which saw them navigate this round. And, well, I wish I could say go on and get promoted. But no, they got spanked in the very next round against Stockport County. All in all, though, a really impressive season for both teams, finishing 5th and 6th. Not a great deal between them, although Pep's team did finish 4 points ahead of Klopp's, although they did have worse goal difference. If we look at the season preview, just so you can see how the teams are lining up, remember the goalkeeper that I criticised a load? Yeah, he's in the Media Dream 11 as one of the best goalkeepers in the league. I'm sorry, Marcel. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. In terms of the pre-season odds, though, neither team was back to be as high up in the table as they were. Pep's team favoured at 6th place in the league, 13-2 to win promotion and win the league. Jurgen Klopp, by comparison, down in 13th, yeah. Media didn't really back his men. Now, looking at Jurgen's transfer business, lots of free transfers this time on the ins. Again, didn't really get rid of a great deal of players. You might remember last episode we observed they had quite a big first team. It's still a big first team. They've got 34 players. In terms of their key performers, Marcel. Yeah, I shouldn't have talked smack about him, it turns out, because he was their best performer by a country mile. Considered their star man, a 7.23 rating for him. And Okocha, the other man definitely worth giving some credit to, the Nigerian centre-back, signed from Notts County for £3,700. He's been a pretty good addition to the team. Does look like Klopp is investing pretty heavily in his defence. Tactically, unsurprising really, both managers for the most part have stuck with their preferred formation, in this instance Klopp of course playing his 4-3-3. And as for the overall state of play, of course Klopp's side last year finished 5th, which was an overperformance last year. For them to reach the playoffs again this year is a pretty good achievement. Going to be interesting to see in the coming years if either this side or Pep's side can take that step up. This division is notoriously difficult to get out of. As for Pep's Dover, a much smaller squad at his disposal, 22 players. Looks like they had a lot of players injured as well towards the end of the season, including their starting goalkeeper who was missing for the playoffs. As a result, one of the nickname players, nicknamed Snickers, no, they're not sponsoring the video, ended up playing in goal, conceded 2 goals, lost in the semi-final. Don't want to blame it entirely on him that they lost to Stockport. Maybe he needs to shoulder some of the blame. Okay, look, I don't want to put all the blame on Snickers, but turns into a diva when he's hungry and also turns into a pretty average goalkeeper. 2 goals conceded. To be fair, they did score from the penalty spot, Stockport, so maybe it's not entirely his fault. The average rating of 6.6 doesn't cover himself in glory. Worth noting that TJ Detweiler, still in the team in at centre-back, although his contract running out at the end of the year, would be a bit of a shame if one of their longest-serving players was just let go, because he's been a pretty good player for them over the years. If you were curious about some of the statistics between these two teams, you can see here Pep's side have the 3rd most possession in the league, so they are very much kind of sticking to his footballing philosophy. Good passing play, holding onto the ball and really bossing it. Was one of the highest averages in the league. Meanwhile, Klopp's side having an okay amount of the ball, the average possession 49%. Certainly not the lowest, but definitely kind of middle of the pack. That said, they were good defensively. You can see here, Klopp's team won the most headers and had the highest headers won percentage. I guess he is just recruiting a physical team capable of pressing, running around a lot, and not really a team focused on the technical side of things. Interesting thing to note, average attendance. Pep's team average 200 more fans. Now, both teams share the same stadium. They, of course, started with the exact same starting point. I do wonder if Pep's more attractive style of play is the reason that there are an extra 220 people on average turning up to watch their matches. And in terms of salaries per year, you can see Pep's side down with the 2nd lowest wages per year in the league by a quite comfortable margin. As for Jurgen Klopp, spending close to £1 million a year on wages, you have to imagine he's burning through that money that we gave them a little bit sooner. Maybe there's going to come a point here where Klopp's side do start to run out of money. In fact, they already have. So negative £400,000 for Klopp's team. As for Pep's side, They've still got £1.3 million in the bank. Jurgen is just burning the money on his giant squad. Pep just seems to be kind of vibing along and just spending the money wisely. Going into this video, that is not the way I thought things were going to plan out financially. I thought Pep would be the man spending all his pennies, but actually, he's been pretty shrewd so far. Anyway, folks, we've spent quite a lot of time talking about this first season, so let's get into the next one. We're going to 2027. Both teams have been in the playoffs 2 years in a row. Can one of them take that crucial next step and find themselves in the Football League? I'll be honest, when I went away, this is not the league table I expected to come back to. Pep Guardiola's side finishing third for a third successive year reaching the playoffs. You might be wondering, where's Klopp's side, Jack? Well, they avoided the drop by 2 points. Yes, they have been absolutely woeful this year. I think we'll start with their team. Now, in terms of transfers, a couple of players sold, a lot of players brought in on frees again. How big's the squad now? 30 is getting bigger every year. It's like Noah's Ark. There's just more and more coming aboard. Tactically, same formation. We've been here before. As for where things are going wrong, I mean, as we scroll through things here, the defensive record is not very good this season. In fact, they just seem to consistently bleed goals. I mean, looking at the league table here, sorted by goals conceded, it was the teams who conceded the most who ended up getting relegated. Klopp's side, though, didn't fare much better than a lot of these. 64 goals conceded, only 51 scored. They are struggling. Also, don't want to alarm anyone, financial status insecure. In part 1, a couple of people asked me to show kind of how the facilities and stuff get upgraded over time. To be honest, there hasn't been a great deal happen here at Klopp's side, other than that they went professional in 2023. That was the season before they got promoted back to the National League. By comparison, if we look at Pep's side of things, they had a takeover happen from within in 2022, and beyond there, not a great deal happened, and in fact, they only turned professional this year. That is really, really impressive for Pep's side as a semi-pro team to go toe-to-toe with so many other professional sides in the National League. Now, much like previous years, Pep's squad by comparison is a lot smaller. I am now wondering if the semi-pro nature of the team going into this year was a factor behind that. In terms of their top goal scorer, they had Lewis Harris to thank for a lot of the goals. He was in on loan from Charlton. And also Rondelli Goodridge, who is another regen from Barbados. 27 caps, 8 goals. And yeah, they picked him up on a free transfer. He's done very well at this level. Pep just seems to have a smaller squad and just be wheeling and dealing way more. Getting rid of players that aren't quite good enough, bringing in new players to replace them on frees. I'll rate the business. It's working. Of course, they finished third, which was a record high. Bit unfortunate. They lost 3-1. And in fact, they had a sending off after 6 minutes in the single-legged semi-final. In the end, they lost to Boreham Wood whilst being down a man. Feels kind of harsh to judge them too much for the sending off. Yeah, it was actually their right winger who got sent off, and he got sent off so soon into the game, he didn't even get an average rating. Just looking at an overview of team stats, you can see here Pep's side having the fewest shots against them, having the most possession with 58%, which is so far above every other team in the division. Clearly, his style of football is working with these lower league teams. In terms of best pass completion, it actually goes to Jurgen Klopp's side, although they're having only 49% of the ball, which makes me feel like they're trying to press not very successfully, because when they have the ball, they pass it around nicely. They just don't win back the ball very often, nor have it very much. Or maybe looking at the amount of possession lost, Klopp's team just pass it around the back when they have the ball. They haven't lost the ball very much in a season. I'm kind of confused by these statistics, but what I am knowing is Pep's football's working. They're playing possession play. It's serving them well. They've been slowly but surely climbing up the league. Surely they're only a hair away from promotion. Let's go to 2028 and see if they can take that crucial final step. It's happened, folks. They've done it. Pep Guardiola's Dover Athletic, despite only finishing 5th, managed to win it in the playoffs against Boreham Wood, who beat them last year in the semi-final. A little bit of redemption, that perhaps for Pep's men. In going pro, maybe they took that last crucial step to, push on that one step further and get promoted. You can see in the final, Boreham Wood did not have a single shot on goal. Pep's side had 56% of possession. Just another superb defensive display by them. And in fact, it was a defensive display that saw them do very well in the league. They had the 3rd best defence. Didn't score that many goals, only 63. But in the end, that 1-0 win against Boreham Wood, who had the best defence in the league, was enough to see them through. You might be wondering, Jack, you've talked all about Pep. Where's Klopp? I don't want to talk about it. They're down in 18th. Jurgen, what are you doing, son? To be honest, at this point, I would like to rescind any support I had for Jurgen's men because, frankly, they've just not been good enough. Their squad is still absolutely massive. They're still spending way too much on players. This year, they sold some players for some pretty significant money. The biggest sale that they made. The German player here, they sold to Blackpool for 120k, which is quite a lot of money for a National League side. I guess they've got to try and move some players on to try and balance the books. Have they had any kind of takeover? No, although their youth category has been lowered. And financially, I mean, are they still in the mud? They are still in the mud. I really thought after the 2 years in the playoffs that Jurgen's men were going to be up there, but no, they finished 18th last year. They finished 18th again this year. Logan Pye is considered their key man. He's fine. He's not a bad player. They've got him in on a free. He's not played very well. I feel like they just don't really have a goal scorer, Klopp's men. And in fact, their top goal scorer this year was Sam Dalby, who scored 9 goals. I mean, he's been at the club a long time, never really scored many. The fact that he's their top goal scorer in his 5th season at the club with 9 in the league, that is a little bit of a concern, isn't it? As for Pep's men, in going professional, it looks like they did go a little bit crazy with transfers. They signed a lot of new players in, picked up plenty of loans as well, where they spent some pretty significant money. So, looks like they did invest into the league season. Although, I say all of that, this is their current squad with a load of injuries in the first team. If we look at their under-18s, some more players there. Did they just let go of a load of players at the end of the previous season? Okay, they released a handful of players. So I guess there's just a conveyor belt of players going in and out. Pep's team proving to be rather ruthless when it comes to their squad building and kind of their allegiances being held to players. Happy to cast them to the side when he decides they're not good enough. 69 goals scored in the league was only the 6th highest. I feel like they were better last season. I don't know if that's a hot take. I guess what's going to be interesting now to see is Pep Guardiola just going to go to the moon? Is he just going to keep going up and up and up? I feel like the National League is a league that teams get stuck in and then can often get back-to-back promotions. We're going to go forward another year. Pep Guardiola going into the Football League. Jurgen Klopp being left behind. I swear if Klopp's Dover get relegated, I'm going to be upset. I really thought he was going to do better. He's failing me. Let's see if he fares any better in 2029. Did Pep's team manage to stay up? I hear you ask. Of course they did. They ended up finishing 18th. It wasn't even close in the end. I say that. They were only 9 points away from the drop, so it could have gone a little bit south for them, I suppose. But no, they've established themselves rather well in League 2 this year. Looking at the pre-season billing, they were actually predicted to do pretty well going into the season. Predicted to finish 17th, as you can see here. In terms of their squad, well, they're predicted to play a 4-3-3. That is Pep's kind of shape of desire. In terms of players in and out, they did make a fair few transfers this year. Although a lot of these players they brought in were really squad players to bolster the squad. They now have a normal-sized team. In terms of the big performers, Rondelli, still doing his thing. Mr. Goodridge, the Barbadian. He's shown that he can do it in the National League. He can kind of hang in League 2 as well. 10 goals to his name. A 7.05 average rating as well. Elsewhere, Kai Corbett has been a regular player in this team. Signed on a free transfer, been a regular man the last few years, was a big part of their promotion campaign last year, and as a player playing out on the right wing, reached double figures again, so turning into a big key player in Pep's plans. When it comes to possession, not quite as dominant as previous years, and it looks like a lot of teams were separated by fractions of a percentage, but Pep Guardiola's team did have the 6th most of the ball. And when it comes to passes completed, they were also right up there. The 7th most completed in the league. A lot of the teams actually finishing ahead of them played in the playoffs. So, yeah, certainly some of the best passing play in the league from Pep's team. Very much sticking to his footballing philosophies. And for people wondering what's going on with Pep, well, of course, he's still got 7 years left here at the club before he moves on. Right now, he's satisfied with life. Very wholesome. Okay, well, I suppose we should go and check on Jurgen Klopp. I have not seen how they've done yet. They weren't in the playoffs. Please don't have got relegated, Klopp Stover. Please don't have got relegated. Okay. They finished 18th again. Is that 3 years in a row they finished the exact same position? They are remarkably rubbish. Financially now considered secure. That's good. There doesn't seem to have been a takeover or anything. Did they go on a cup run, maybe? Was it like a big cup game that saw them get some money? Oh, okay. They played Pep Stover in the FA Cup. Oh, incredible. So even though they were in different leagues, the two managers actually did battle. In this game here, you can see Klopp Stover drew 1-1 at home after having a man sent off in the 24th minute. Benet let his team down massively, but Klopp's team managed to cling on. They had 3,000 fans turn up for that game, which is a really big attendance for their side. I suppose it's considered a local derby of sorts. And then in the return game, which had significantly fewer people turn up midweek, I guess Pep Stover's side don't really care about National League opposition. Pep's side won 2-1 and were kind of dominant in it, to be honest. Klopp stuck with his 4-3-3. An okay performance. I'm not going to say anything, but our favourite goalkeeper, still at the club, still getting a 6.3. I think he's the problem, Jurgen. Move him on. Pep's side, by comparison, still playing the same shape. Also worth noting, Maddison for them, who was the goalkeeper they signed in the very first season, is still their goalkeeper. Both managers sticking with the goalkeepers they brought in all those years ago. When it comes to Klopp's side, 41 people in the first team. Someone should really have a word with Jurgen. I feel like he's hoarding at this point. Part of me wonders if it is to do with Jurgen Klopp's style of play and the fact that because it's so intense, he kind of feels like he needs more players to rotate the team. You can see they started the season reasonably okay, and then the second half of the season, it just goes completely down the drain. It's like he just burns through all his players. I wonder if this is a trend year on year where they struggle towards the end of seasons. It certainly looks like it is a thing where at this lower level of play, the last couple of months of a season just seem to be absolutely tragic for the team because they just can't keep it up all year long. Pep was satisfied with how things are going. Jurgen Klopp, disappointed at how things are going. Jurgen, it's going to be okay. Maybe change up your style of play. The pressing ain't working. We're 8 years into this experiment, and I think it's becoming apparent Jurgen Klopp's style of play just doesn't seem to work with this quality of player. But you know what? Maybe he can turn it around. Let's give him a chance. We're going to 2030, 8 years in the future. Let's see how he's got on. You know what? For the previous few seasons, I've been looking at Pep first because I've always been more hopeful of him. Today I've come back on Klopp Stover first. They finished 7th in the National League. That's a playoff spot. How did they get on? They're not in the final. Jurgen? I mean, he's back in the playoffs, so I guess that's good. They got annihilated 3-0, and they had a different goalie in goal. After all my years of complaining, they sold Marcel. I mean, they got to the playoffs, so clearly he was holding them back. I do wonder if he might have helped them out a little bit in that playoff game, though. So when it's come to Klopp's transfer business, for another year, it is just a lot of selling and recouping costs. They've been doing that the last few years. In fact, one thing I didn't notice previously, or I did notice it but not really comment on the significance of it, is a few years ago they did have to sell £300,000 worth of players, which maybe can be attributed to their downward spiral. Of course, previous few years finishing 18th. This year they finished 7th, so clearly something has gone right for them. So from a goal scoring perspective, they weren't that remarkable. 55 goals scored is very, very low. What seems to have done them a lot of good is defensively way better. Only 47 goals conceded. That was the 4th best in the league and is a big reason why they found themselves scraping into the playoffs this year. You know what? I'm feeling way more optimistic for Jurgen Klopp's men now than I was previously. They've raised their youth category as well, and they've improved their youth and training facilities. Everything's just getting better. Financially, they're okay. They're doing fine. It's all good. Let's go see how Pep's doing. Hopefully, I have as much to be optimistic when it comes to Pep Guardiola's team. He's managing Pep Stover. There's no positives, there's no negatives. Where have they finished? 18th. Is that good or is that bad? Where did they finish? Did they finish 18th last year? They did. I feel like Klopp's team went through a phase of finishing 18th. Now it's Pep's team's turn to finish 18th. If you were wondering who their key player is, it's Greg Cummins, who is a very, very good centre-back that they snapped up on a free transfer from Man City of all teams. Pep Guardiola continuing to use his links with his former club. You can see here the transfers they did. A lot of free transfers brought in. A few players sold as well, to be fair. Compared to Klopp's team, though, much less need to sell players year on year. Finally, it feels like the penny has dropped for Pep. He is actually starting to spend money and have a squad. 25 players in his first team. They're doing fine. And good news, everyone. Goodridge is still here. He's still scoring goals. He's still doing his thing. Never before have I become so attached to just a random regen forward as I have this man. Tactically, Pep's still playing a 4-3-3 this year with Goodridge leading the line. And when it came to possession, for the first time in a long, long while, Pep's team down in the bottom half, only 49% of it. I wonder how much of this is him maybe tweaking his style of play and how much of this is that with the promotion that they've had, just on a technical level, they can't quite compete in the same way they did in the National League with the same group of players. Funny little statistic I noticed here, Pep's team have the most yellow cards in the league, 87, that is a lot more than anyone else. Turns out he's turned his team into a very dirty team. That just doesn't seem very Pep Guardiola to me. So both teams settling into their divisions, it feels like at this point. Can Pep's team push on that little bit? A few smart transfers, some good moves? Maybe they can climb their way up. As for Klopp, I've just resigned myself to the fact he's going to be stuck here forever. If they get promoted, great. I feel like it's going to be a long shot. Prove me wrong, Jurgen. Get out of this division. Let's see how they get on in 2031. Is anyone else getting a sense of deja vu here? Klopp's team, just remarkably consistent. Consistently bad or consistently slightly above average. 3 years in a row they finished 18th. Now for a second season in a row they finished 7th. You might be wondering, how did they get on in the playoffs, Jack? They lost in the first round to Port Vale. You know, I don't know what to say really. I know the playoffs are very competitive. I do feel like between Pep and Klopp, we've seen some pretty abysmal performances when it comes to these big crunch knockout games at the end of the year. What I will say is Klopp does seem to have reinvented his team over the last few years. They had the 4th highest average possession. They had the fewest shots against. They're still having the best pass completion as well. I feel like his team have maybe finally learnt how to defend a bit more as a unit and not give the ball away quite as much. They were having all those passes previously. Now they're actually doing stuff when they have the ball, and when they don't have the ball, they're actually doing okay. Just a quick little check-up on our annual squad size check. Currently, 42 players in Klopp's team. And if you're wondering about their best player, it's a regen called Dave Allen. They signed him on a free from Stoke. Last year he got 8 in 40. This year he got 15 in 38. His step up in performance definitely helped them going forward. And because I know people are going to ask, Jack, how is Marcel doing at Lincoln, the guy you've been bullying for years? Turns out he's actually an okay League One goalkeeper. I would like to issue him an apology. He was not holding Klopp's team back. In fact, Klopp is the issue. Wow. Okay, I did not expect to see this. Pep's won the bloody league. 10 years in, Pep Guardiola is going up into League One with his Dover Athletic team. 70 goals scored for was not the most by any means, but defensively, they had the best defence in the league. And in the end, that saw them hoist the title. This is a very, very impressive feat. Sticking with their 4-3-3 system, I mean, I need to know now, was the man Goodridge involved? Of course he was. Of course he was. 13 goals again. Was he their top goal scorer? He wasn't. Josh Curry, who they've got in on loan from Aston Villa, was. He's quick, isn't he? Also, what a haircut. I think this actually might be the first season in this entire simulation across 10 years where we see multiple players getting into double figures to this degree when it comes to goals. I feel like both managers have struggled to create that many chances with their teams relative to the rest of the league, but it looks like for Pep's team this year, things really, really clicked. I'm now wondering about the season preview. You know, was his squad predicted to do this well? I'm going to say no. They were predicted to finish 21st. Last season, they finished 18th. Now, I think we have to assume here that a lot of the new additions have had a pretty significant impact on the first team. But nevertheless, to take a team who finished 18th last year, were predicted to finish 21st, and win the league, that's pretty impressive. Pep's side had the 5th most possession in the league with 52%. They had the fewest conceded. What I will say is, in terms of expected goals for, Pep's team only had an XG of 55.38. So they massively overperformed their XG across the season. Their actually expected goals for was 18th. And they were like in the top 5 goal scoring teams all season. As for their expected goals against, well, their actual goals against was 43. Their expected goals against was 55. What I'm gathering here is that Pep might have got a little bit lucky this year. I have also just noticed here, they've moved into a new stadium. Have Pep Stover. When did they move in here? I'm sure some of you were screaming at your monitors when you noticed this happen. Pep Guardiola's side moved into a new stadium when they were promoted. I wonder if that was some kind of stadium requirement that their old ground couldn't quite facilitate. Nevertheless, they've moved there, 3 seasons in League 2, and on the 3rd one, they've gone and found themselves in League 1. I've also just noticed here, Gavin Taylor for Pep has the 2nd highest average rating in the league. A striker who can play centre mid, in on loan from Derby. 11 goals, 12 assists. Yeah, he's been pretty good, hasn't he? They've had him on loan a few years, and in fact, he was on loan at Pep's team. the year that they got promoted from the National League. And he's also been on loan at Klopp's Dover as well. He's got around a bit, hasn't he, this Gavin fella? It pains me to say this a little bit, but at the end of part 2 here, 6 years we've covered, 10 years into the experiment, I think Pep Guardiola's got the better of Klopp. And that is not what I expected to happen. I did not think it would go down like this. I mean, yeah, I don't know what Klopp can do in part number 3 to even redeem himself with 5 years left. Pep's now 2 divisions ahead of him. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. If there was anything that I didn't spot that maybe you noticed as I navigated through the thousands of screens that exist within Football Manager, let me know it down in the comments. If you've got any theories as to why the results that we're seeing are happening, I'd also be interested in knowing those. I feel like Jurgen Klopp has let us down. Even if he's satisfied with his life, I am absolutely not. If you were satisfied with this video, though, drop a like on it. It helps me out massively, helps feed the YouTube algorithm. If you're new around here and maybe you've got to the end of this video, make sure to subscribe for more Football Manager content. I will see you guys again on the next one. And well, until then, it is me, Jack, and I'll talk to you all next time. I'm out.